Hello! I just remembered I gotta turn myself around to face my tablet. I'll do that in a second. But welcome. I am going to color a couple things for Skitter, and then I'm gonna this will mostly be a doodle stream tonight. Silly little doodle stream. Whee! Hello, Noelle. Hello, Eo. Also, I'm pretty sure that the tablet is not plugged in, and I just remembered, like, right as the coloring song was playing. So, 1 second. First, you take the black cable and the red, and then plug it into your bed. No, wait, this is a computer. Okay. And then I grab. Oh, okay. Snuggle the doodle, snuggle, doodling, snuggle. I love it. I love that so much. And let me. I think I might also play I'm kind of Skitter's playlist too. I just feel like I want something to pump me up a little bit. Get out of brain fog town. But yeah, let me turn myself. Oh, slurp and stretch. 1 second. Oh. Where's my tablet? There it is. And okay, I stretch. Hang on. Let me get display capture. And then a slip. Maybe what I will do is I will listen to Skitter playlist while I'm coloring the things for Skitter, and then I will listen to Magnus Archives while I do doodling. Because at first I thought, like, is that weird how unfitting that is? But I think that's what's funny about it. Is when I do doodling while listening to that, it always seems like ends up being really funny. Wait, desktop audio's off. Here we go. I hope the volume's good. Happy Doodle with spoop sounds. Was I like doodling a silly clown or something? Or when they were talking about a scary clown? I remember something like that happened. This, like, in the chorus of this song, it sounds like a band we grew up with, but I don't think it is. I think it's just, like, similar to that sound. Am I thinking of, like, Breaking Benjamin or something? Like, that sound, like, I feel like they're, like, mimicking an American group there with that sound. I don't know how to describe it. will. I think I got behind on posting doobles. I should post to Tumblr too. Let's see, I gotta get a Weppy for Skitter's colors. Skitter is a possum. This is how they talk. Well, half possum, half skunk. Muppet. Or it talks, sorry. So I guess I do the everything but the head on one layer and then do the two heads on another layer. Hello, Wassa! I'm making a funny little PNGtuber for Skitter. I think it's also funny how Skitter was thinking of that the first instance of using this would be streaming Shaolin Showdown, the game. And then it remembered, oh wait, I was gonna use this for therapy. And then we're just like, you know what? I think it's fine to have a silly PNGtuber for therapy. It's just funny thinking of, like, talking about really, like, deep stuff while looking like this. Oh, I gotta change. The tablet keeps wanting my pressure sensitivity to be in the middle, but I like soft. Oh yeah, and I forgot to draw Skitter claws. Let me do that. And then I also have a sketch that you might have seen if you're in Fuki's Discord of Jack with Sabini. Amazon said that it delivered our eyes and beans today for that, but they did not. I think that's happened before, where it's like, someone doesn't want to get in trouble for messing up, so they just say it's delivered when it wasn't. And I'm like, but that's lying to me. That's not nice. Has that ever happened to anyone? Is it a common thing for them to do, is lie? Yeah! Gotta keep up the skull theme between, hosts. Oh, I love that guy. He's funny. Do you guys think Yodogawa Joe Archive will ever get a Poppin' music appearance? It's so weird to me they keep making songs about him, but the character that represents the song is like not him. Which I like Yodo doesn't, and Kamogawa and Dr. Flask. But I'm like, he's got an entire CD. Why did they not put him in the game? Is he too scary? I still forget sometimes that how we commission someone on Fiverr to translate that CD. Hi, Fabot! Welcome to Skit. Da 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 da. I live underground. Do 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 do. I live underground. I live underground. I live underground. Skitter sketch. I live underground. I live underground. I live underground. How does, oh, just like that. This would be a good time for Lily to show up. And that's why. Void! Problems. No rapid spread. A rapid spread. A futility. No rupture. Alright. No game. Boy, ventilation in your head. Boy, ventilation in your mind. I'm right. You're neutral. No game. Really like Skitter's pants? Oh, I'm glad you do. Did it just pick the... Oh, wait. Did it just pick the two Fat Boy songs back to back that we have? No, wait. No, it didn't. Sorry. Sometimes I think we get this song mixed up with Fat Boy's first song. Hopped into a pile of plushies, recovering monopoints. Oh yeah. Skitter's got some good songs in here. mean, it's really Skitter's, but I helped. Let me feel so high just now. Hey, the button. Oh, juice. Let me feel so high just now. Everybody's alone. I don't care if you leave me alone. Crazy for you. Ah! Let me feel so high just now. Let me feel so high just now. Mix me, oh mix my jelly. Everybody's alone. I don't care if you leave me alone. Crazy for you. Yeah, go to heaven. Yeah, only you can. Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Feel so high just now. Baby. Let me feel so high just now. Fix me, baby. Crazy for you. Hey, I did it. I held it out all the way. That's what Skitter says too. Oh no! Singing too good is against TOS. Sorry. yourself. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. Ta-da! For that layer. What a fine lad. Looks very polite. Ah! Screaming so politely. Aww. Hip hop and hug. Do do do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do do do. Let's see, what color should I make? This color. Oh. Let me copy this dark orange. There we go. Maybe we can use... I think... We like unnatural tongue colors in this house. Skitter should get soft fruit to mash up in his mouth. Yum 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 yum. Oh, we gotta see the video. Oh, so cute! Ah! Ah! Nom 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 nom. Nom nom nom. Skitter's people. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. So cute! Hi! Oh, baby! I want to pet a possum now. Aww, a Skitter I can pet. Now introducing Skitter too. A Skitter you can pet. select. What tool do you want to color with, Gravy? I wonder if I can get him to color. Or draw, I mean. Let's see if I... Gravy! This is Gravy! He nudged the pen. Is that a finger? Or is he trying to draw something naughty? Gravy! See if I can have him add to it. Gravy! Gravy! Gravy, come here! Gravy! He's nudging the computer instead of the pen now. Gravy! Meow, meow, meow. Gravy, come here! The pen allures you. Interesting, interesting. It's beautiful. I have no idea what it is. Gravy, can you describe this piece you just drew? Gravy? Gravy, what did you draw? I tried to get him to do that on a notebook paper before, or sketchbook paper. It didn't work out so well. Like, nothing really happened. But that was... It's like easier to get him to do it on the tablet because the pens doesn't take as much pressure. Especially when I have the settings on the softest it can go. Just how we like it. Ah! Hiya! 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 I keep feeling like I'm missing something, but I think it's just because I'm only seeing one side of the head. Oh! We need to draw the cheek fluff. Somehow we missed that. Aww. He says, I don't want to go to bed. It says sorry. I don't want to go to bed. Well. Oh, I have to think why. Oh, wait. I only want to copy the body. I guess I don't have to line it up because there's no background, so I think it's fine just to. Or wait. Oh, hi, Fuki! Thought jockey or a musical fictive was the music bean, but no, it was Snuggle all along. Aww. Oh, I can't take full credit because I'm just playing Skitter's playlist. But I'm glad you're enjoying the tunes. Oh, this is the song with Feebot in it. Listen carefully. Every time it's like, how do they do that? Wait. I just realized we have the eyebrows under the hair, but they're over the hair here. Maybe they go back and forth. Depends on how we're feeling. Check it out. Get down, get down, get down, down. Yeah, oh, oh. Are Skitter's eyes crossed on purpose? I think so. I don't know. I just feel like I see a lot of cartoon characters with their eyes like close to the center of their face, and it looks cute. It's a tuber. Mootsuber. Creepy. Skitter's very cute, but that's not saying much because oh, Zephyrs are cute. Aww. Baby. Let me add the face voice before I forget. Creepy wants to do more research. Time traveler confirmed. Oh, baby wants to draw some more. You gonna add to your picture? Baby! Oh. He was starting to draw. Baby! Baby! It's beautiful. What could it mean? Choo choo. Baby. Baby! You keeps trying to steal our allergy pills, or our sinus pills. Why? Come here. Ruby's making art that represents Skitter. Aww. You trying to draw Skitter? It's beautiful. Do you have allergies, Gravy? You do? Oh no. Meow, 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 meow. Oh no! Might be allergic to lack of hugs and pets and scratches. Baby, what you doing? I can't wait to see this in action. The PNGtuber. I think Skitter's co-friending me. And Cuddle. Aw, Tabby! Do you have a kitty? Or do you need to come over here to get one? I'll put Gravy in the mail right away. Oh, they don't like being picked up. to walk. Whoa. Oh, I want to fire. Take me to the higher. Oh, make, sing, shake, break. Oh, I want to fire. Take me to the higher. Oh, make, sing, shake, break it down. Hey, hey. Let me rotate it just a little like this. Oh no! Doggies should be allowed on couches, I feel. Sorry for my loud slurping. Go to the R to the double O-V-Y. I'm so excited to see this in action. Big ship. Aw, sneaky. I wanna get this little speck here that I missed. I want to fire, take me to the higher. Make, sing, shake, break. I want to fire, take me to the higher. Make, sing, shake, break it down. Right here, right now. Let me see, what did it say? Sorry. I just looked over at the at the laptop, and I think Graby opened up the calculator and typed 99,999,999,999. Oh, I'm sorry. He typed 0 plus that number. He wanted to know what 0 plus 909. Sorry. 99,999,999,999 would be. What a silly equation. me. You want to know the answer? You never had equals. You want me to tell you the answer? He's like, I want to try to figure out on my own first. Baby! Baby! That's cute. I'm so excited to see this. That closed. Hello? I love it. Ah! It's so cute. Hang on, let me add a shaking effect. Okay. Watch this. Ah! 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 Hi. Hello. Hi. I love this so much. Hi. Hello. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it. Wait, I'm gonna have Skitter sing. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. Oh, Scooper's making him talk. Scooper! Scooper, meow a little louder. Scooter, do you have a cold? You sound a little different. Meow. Meow. Ah. Ah. Scooper did actually turn off the computer. The stream just didn't go down because I hit cancel in time to stop it. But VC face froze because of the computer getting shut down, I guess. So I'm booting it back up. Scooper, what do you have to say for yourself? Yeah? You have to say meow? Scooper. Scooper. Scooper, why are you always doing this? Yeah, Grapey had math problem and art. He's been so busy. Let's see. I want to close this. I guess I'll say yes. And oh, I need to bring back the music. Why is it taking VC? Okay. Maybe I never clicked on VC face. I thought I did. I'm big now. I'm so big. Hi. Where'd the music stop? Oh yeah, YouTube does the thing where it says video pause. Continue watching? Big Snuggle. And for the other thing, I want to color for Skitter. Oh man, oh, I gotta turn VC face transparent. Somehow Scooper doing that made the tracking way off on the tablet. Maybe if I unplug and replug in the tablet, it will be okay. La 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 la. Let's see. Nope. Okay, I think I have to recalibrate or whatever. So it's not showing up anymore, the display. There we go. Okay, it should be good now. Yeah. Jack and Sabini. Let me get good references for them. Does Faebot remember Sabini? Sabini has actually, like, nothing to do with Jack Spicer. We just... Hollow. We're pretty sure that Hollow, who is Skitter's QPP, kin Sabini, so we just jumped to the idea of what if they were good pals? Look at this. I guess this is kind of spoiler, but also not too much, since I'm only showing what the character looks like. I'm not, like, saying anything about them. And also, they're only in one episode, so I feel like it's not that plot heavy, even if I did spoil the plot. You don't remember Sabini, oh no! But it's so cute! It's a friend. Let's see. Scooper? I think the strap actually should go like this. Scooby! So, a lot of cute dudes we forgot about. Do you remember Megan? It's the character I think I can. I'm like almost sure of it. Scoopy got the golden tiger claws. I can just imagining him holding them up and saying, "Golden tiger claws!" Yeah! Where would he go? On your bed to sleep, Scoopy. You don't need the golden tiger claws to do that. You're so funny. Had to Google Megan. Does that mean you remember after you saw her? Scoopy remembers, I think. Meow. Meow. I love how he has to close his eyes when he meows, like he's just filled with conviction. Hey, Scoopy. Very vaguely, it has to have been 10 plus years since I last watched Shaolin Showdown. It might be almost that long for us, too. Maybe. Because it's been 10 years since Chronicles came out. And that might be the last time we rewatched it. Maybe. But I feel like we've seen it so many times that that we remember most things. Hello, Colorful Callus! Thank you for the 7th month resub! That's a CC. Hey. Okie dokies. Scoopy. getting a little too close to that power button, buddy. His tongue's way out. Scoopy. Do I need to pick you up? He's such a weirdo. Scoopy and the power button. He already turned the stream off for a second earlier. Actually, the stream never went down, surprisingly, but he shut down the computer. Or it was like going into shutdown and I hit cancel, but I always hit cancel, but usually stream goes down before the cancel goes through. But yeah, I'm like, you can't do it twice in one stream. He might have. I wouldn't put it past him. Oh, I gotta show you what Graby drew. Graby drew this. I was holding the pen for him, but he was nudging the pen along and drawing whatever that is. He also opened up the calculator and tried to solve a math problem. He was adding 0 plus 99,999,999,999. But he never hit equals. So I asked him if he wanted me to hit equals to tell him what the answer is. He didn't seem to really care anymore. Oh, he's looking at me now. Do you want to know what the answer to the math problem is? Do you want to know? I'm going to hit equals now. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but... It's 99,999,999,999. It's not about the answer, it's about the journey. So true. Oh, I'm catching up on chat. You feel like you can Jack, yo! That's cool. I feel like Scooper has turned off your... Oh wait, I already read that one. I'm gonna start telling people Jack and we are headmates. Are they? That'd be really cool. Also, somehow I thought the answer to that problem was 0. I feel so stupid now. I think I'm thinking of multiplying. If you multiply those two numbers, it'd be 0. I gotta go back to kindergarten. Snuggle elf. Everything just equals 0. In a perfect world. Wait, where'd my chakra print? Oh, there. We were so sure we had like brown faux fur to make the Sabini plushie we want to make. We want to make him fluffy. We didn't realize how green the main color here is. We've never used a color like this, so we tried googling like dark olive, and it matches pretty good. It's like perfect. But like all the places to get material online, you gotta buy like way more than you actually want, especially for just making a little bug plushie. So we're thinking of trying to go to Joann's tomorrow or soon and seeing if they have a faux fur, like a soft fluffy fabric of this color. Meow! Hi, Scromian! Is Bugfriend normally that size, or did you just draw him that size? I'm pretty sure the bug be like size shifts, because I don't want to spoil the episode too much, but this is a creature that crawls in your ear, so it can get that small, and it can also get like 2 or 3 times your height. For at least for the Shaolin Showdown, I don't know if that was his power that made him that big, or if it was just the Showdown being like, for the Showdown to be fair, you gotta be big. They ate the chopsticks! I think it's so funny. You know, Sabini is like a demon in the show. And, for so long we thought he must be named after like an actual demon. We finally just decided to Google Sabini to see if that's true. And like, all of the results are like an Italian mod boss named Sabini. So I think that's really funny. Just imagining it go like, "Hey boys, it's me, Sabini." It's time for you to take a dip. Oh, thank you. Just a little guy. I feel like this is the main size he is, though. Like, I think we posted the screenshot of Sabini on Jack's face. I guess we screenshotted that from the episode. We didn't find it on Google. Can I find that? This Twitter is loading so slow. This is not part of Sabini, by the way. The wings here. This is a Shingang the monarch wings. It looks like it's coming out of Sabini, but it's not. Gotta trust me. Hug. Oh, Skitter deserves all the heart. Get off my way. Get off on my way. I just realized the way that song is called "Get Off of My Way." And it's like a mistranslation or whatever, or not a mistranslation, because that's what the song is originally. But what do you want to say? It's a English mistake or whatever. It makes me think of Omi. He would do that. He would be like, "See, guys, when I said get off of my way that one time, I was right." That is how you say that. Also, for those who don't know, not to brag, but the The official challenge, challenge showdown / chronicles page followed us today on Twitter. So if we post this, they'll probably see it. And then that means if they ever make a new series, they know what they gotta do. They gotta have Jack adopt Sabini. God, you're such a bragger. Oh, have fun, colorful cast. Their Twitter is like pretty barren, but they just started tweeting like more often like in January. I'm like, does this mean anything? Hey DJ, 1, 2, 3, 4. They sent Skitter being a Jack victim and they're making more challenge showdown. Probably not, but we can lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that means that there's a new season coming without Terry Strong doing the accent. Alright. It would be cool if they like cast like people of the actual races to do the voices. I don't blame her too much, but I think it didn't matter much if they had a Chinese voice actor back then. They still would have had them do a weird accent. Yeah. What lines are not touching? We are the doobles and what are they gonna do? We are the doobles and Ooh, yeah. Why have I never thought to listen to other dubs? I wonder. What if Terry Strong was the voice in every language? They would never do that. I remember as a kid, when I would hear dubs in another language, I'd be like, why didn't the same voice actor not do the dub for, like, every language? It's funny. It was like, I know they don't speak the language, but couldn't they just read it off a script? Obviously, now I know that would be silly and not work that well, but... Oh, there was I saw a clip of an anime. I don't think we'd want to get into it. I don't even remember what anime it was, but it seemed like it had too much fan service for us to get into. But I saw a clip of an anime how there was this one girl who had the same voice actor in the sub as the dub. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. It's interesting to hear. It's like you can tell it's the same person, but like the voice sounds slightly different because of how she's speaking a different language. Like, that's so cool. Wait, did Shuffle get turned off when Scooper turned off the computer? I just realized that I think all the songs are playing in order. It doesn't really matter that much, but I'll turn it on. Yeah, there's probably some bilingual voice actors out there. Even then, though, a lot of times it's like the casting process. You might not be likely to voice in more than one, even if you know the language, because of like directors having different visions or something. It is neat to hear, though. My dub will surpass all the other dubs. I don't know why, but I just remembered how Pandy and Stocking, I feel like the Japanese version, like the original sub, is actually not that adult. At least in comparison, I feel like they went and ran with it for the English dub. It's kind of funny. It's like, oh, we can be as naughty as we want with this show. Let's do it. The ironic thing is when I said let's do it, I feel like I sounded like Stocking. That's a person? Wait. What? Pandy and Stocking? Guy who gets competitive about directing dubs. There's probably someone out there like that. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. I might make Jack's skin slightly darker if the teeth, if you can't see the teeth when they color it in. Jack's skin color changes a lot depending on the lighting. It's like very white in the open and very gray indoors. Whoa, kitties! Freebie was grabbing that butt of Scoopers. Kappa Mikey! Oh, I love Kappa Mikey! I feel like every time we watch it, we don't end up watching that many episodes because brain gets distracted with other things, but I love Kappa Mikey, especially Guano. Funny guy. I think, did Kappa Mikey, the character, have the same voice actor as Jimmy Two Shoes? I feel like that's true. Kappa Mikey is so... It's not like it's revolutionary, but I feel like they were ahead of their time in that there's like all this like anime reference stuff going on. And I feel like at the time it came out, no one knew what anime was. Or not that many people. And now like, I feel like anime is so big. I feel like it came out in the wrong time period or something. Like, I think as a kid watching it, I'm like, I didn't get any of what they were doing with the anime reference stuff. So I don't think I've seen an anime before. I knew what it was. The tatami room scene. I just want to make this color match. Scooperton. To crawl so the next generation could run. Actually made anime as an homage to the characters in Kappa. That explains why I didn't know what anime was until after I saw it. I don't think I'd be interested in Talia, but I didn't know they made a new one. You know, we have friends that liked that when we were teens. Kappa. Kappa invented it. Wait, his name's Kappa Mikey, but he's not a Kappa. I just remembered a Kappa is a creature. Rip off. Local line imitation. Oh, Yippee, are you ready? Thick game, huh? Yeah, maybe I'll make skin color a little darker. What? What? Okay. It was like saying that Jack's skin color was like on the green palette. I don't know if you saw that. That was weird. Fake game hard to hard now. Then machine to make love. Give me a kick. Some brick, big game hard to hide, but then you make love. Almost done. There's nothing more sacred than the bond between a boy and his pet. That's what Robotnik says. I just learned last night. Breakdown! A breakdown! Everybody breakdown! A breakdown! A breakdown! Everybody breakdown! Yeah, a breakdown! Yeah, a breakdown! Yay! Wait, did Fuki? What an evil lad. Did Fuki see the Skitter PNGtuber? I might have to get that up again. Very impolite. Oh wait. Wait, yeah, that I do want to close Flash. I gotta get it up again then. Wait, that's magenta. Oh, I never saved it. That's okay. I'll save it this time. Closed mouth, open eyes, and then open eyes, open mouth, and then okay. Hello. I don't know why, but the way it ended, it made me think of. Have you seen the Get Down animation meme where it goes, Get down, and then like the character's like frantically spinning around like crazy, and it just ends with them just like just calmly looking right at you. Wait, can I find one? I just see one with like just like a base. Is there like a there's a rat one. Oh my, they made this one specifically for me. Please. Oh, they didn't do the funny part that I was talking about, where they just look at the camera. Oh, here's the original one, I think, or like one of the OGs. Oh, it's got the Vocaloids on. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. They're just... Oh, the song ended a little differently. It normally, like, when they look at you like that, it normally would have no audio, and it was kind of disturbing because they're like, oh, Pookie. Wait, I swear, someone made one of Lumpy from Happy Tree Friends, and that's where we first discovered that animation meme. But I probably can't find it by Googling it. Oh, sorry for blood, if you're not into blood. What if I search it? No. I grew up on that video. I wish I could find it. Get down, do do do. Okay, sorry. I got like way sidetracked here. I want to take a little break to get my water filled, and then I will forgot the I forgot the PNGtuber was up. It's a weird place to grow up on, but I'm no one to judge. I mean, Happy Tree Friends? I feel like Happy Tree Friends made us not uncomfortable with gore. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I love it though. It's just something kids shouldn't see. But if you're a kid and you saw it, then there's no turning back. Woohoo! Sorry, I can't get over this model. I love it so much. Forgot what I was Googling. Oh yeah, Magnus Archives. Why does that get me so mad? I'm trying to find the playlist I was going through before. It was like season 1 playlist. Oh, there it is. But why? Oh, I see. It does have the red bars. I'm so glad for YouTube's feature of having red bars so that you can tell which ones you've watched, because I would never remember unless I wrote it down or something. I guess maybe if they didn't have that though, I'd try harder to remember, and then maybe I would. Who knows? Oh yeah, let me get up the list of all the redeems I got. And hopefully it won't take too long to find where that is. Viewer rewards, channel points. Manage? How do I see them? How do I see them? Ah. Rawest 30 seconds you will ever. Wait. Why can I not see it on Streamlabs? Oh, client. There we go. Gotta watch it. I didn't realize how quiet the music was for y'all. I thought the music was too loud, judging by the audio feedback I was getting. I love how it ends just loop. Ah. Where is how you see? Visit the collection? No. You clipped the same thing. I'm glad you liked it. How do you see? Why can't I find it? I want to see where you see where people redeem. Like, I found it last time where you can see all your redeems you got. I feel like I'm in the right place. No, you lost. You lose it? Or they just moved it around? Because, oh no, I had so many MS Paint doodles. That's so mean. Because, like, I used to write them down. We used to write them down when we'd get them. And then we realized, oh, you can just easily click on this to look at them. And, wait, review request queue. Is that it? I found it. I found it. We're okay. We're okay. It's, we're, okay. Wait, I can share my other screen to show you where I found them. So this is under viewer rewards and channel points, custom rewards. It's this button right here. Review request queue. Not to be confused with my girlfriend queue. It's a different queue. I'm glad I found it. I was worried for a second. I'm sorry. It's like I gotta get up to go on a little break to refill my water, but I'm having so much fun just playing with this PNG. Skitter's a puppy now. I love playing with Skitter. You just started working. Meow. Meow. Wee! I had to throw in a horse. Thank you, Noel. Okay. I need to close it before I accidentally stay here on that all night long. And brushy crayon. Okay, I will be right back. Boo! Oh, boo! Was it so scary? Was it so scary? Okay. I'm gonna... Wait, where's my mouse? There it is. Let's see. How many... Wow, I have a lot. I have a lot. That's okay. I might not get through all of them tonight. But I will do my best. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Most of them are yours except for, I think, 4? Yeah, there's 3 eel and 1 wastelander in here. I'm just gonna start at the top of them and go through. Oh, I just realized it. It literally tells you the number. I didn't have to count. Yeah, it's 28. Okay. Time for spooky. Snuggle doodling stocks are skyrocketing. I just saw that out of the corner of my eye and I thought you said skydiving. Wait, I kind of wanna, sorry, before spooky, I kind of want to play skydiving. I'll play it with the video too, because I just want to see it again after, after now knowing there's nothing, wait, sorry I keep getting sidetracked, I promise I want to do doodles. I just want to show you. I just love this edit though. Like all the edits are cool. In any YTP MV. But I just want to show you like the original clip of my favorite part of skydiving. And then I'll play skydiving. And then I'll color, I promise. Wait.
When they do,
Wait.
of course they will. There's nothing more sacred than the bond between a boy and his pet. As I know all too well.
Oh, you had a pet?
Mr. Bobo was more than a pet. He was a villain's best friend. Brave, trustworthy, loyal, always willing to share his lunch. I miss that little cockroach.
It's so cute. It makes me want to get more cockroaches so bad. Oh. And name it Mr. Bob. Oh. I feel like we might need to do more research on them, though. Like, I'm curious. Do cockroaches, like, die if they can't fuck? Is that a weird thing to ask? Because, like, we were buying just males so that we didn't have to deal with babies, and I wonder if that was, like, cruel? If they, like, if they were, like, miserable because of not being able to have babies? Do you like Goopster or Mr. Bobo more? I'm leaning towards Mr. Bobo, but I like Goopster too. I'm just biased towards Mr. Bobo because he's a cockroach. And we had those as pets. And it's also cute how Robotnik was emotional over him.
Conquest.
Dictatorship get boring. What's wrong with me? I need to find something to do. That's fascinating, guaranteed. Camping, no. Fishing, no. Under total tyranny.
What
Else do I
could it
need? What do I need?
Wait,
Wait, I know. Skydiving.
Out of the window. It's positively perilous. I'm such a big thrill seeker. Don't forget to bring a parachute. Skydiving off the building. It's despicably genius. I'm such a big cupcake. Don't forget to bring along 4 boots. What a perfect time to have fun with
It's my wicked son.
And you're going nuts hanging out all the time.
Not anymore. That's a bonus.
I was all ready for bungee jumping.
If that's how you get your jollies, go ahead. But nothing will ever compare to this. It's so much more delicious. Skydiving out of the window. It's positively scandalous. I'm such a smart person. Don't forget to bring a parachute.
He forgot!
Skydiving off another list. It's despicably monstrous. I'm such a fun kind of guy. Don't forget to bring the money and the loot.
Skydiving, Coolamundo.
It overwhelms me with joy. There's nothing more sacred than the bond between a man and his boy.
I love the picture edit.
Sounds radical.
It's so cute.
Nothing like a father-son team.
Yeah, I know. You make a pretty mean team.
No one can stop the supreme.
Skydiving.
Skydiving.
Maybe I'm dreaming.
Of course not.
This is gonna be fun.
I can hardly wait.
Golly, you're serious.
Skydiving out of the window. This'll be a real kick. At least I know what went wrong. I need something more vicious. Like skydiving out of the window. It's positively perilous. I'm such a big thrill seeker. Don't forget to bring a parachute. Skydiving off the building. It's despicably genius. I'm such a big cupcake. Don't forget to bring along 4 boots. Skydiving out of the window. It's positively scandalous. I'm such a smart person. Don't forget to bring a parachute. Skydiving off another list. It's despicably monstrous. I'm such a fun kind of guy. Don't forget to bring the money and the loot.
Skydiving, Coolamundo.
It overwhelms me with joy. There's nothing more sacred than the bond between a man and his boy.
Skydiving.
Sounds radical.
There's nothing like a father-son team.
Yeah, I know. You make a pretty mean team.
No one can stop the supreme.
Skydiving.
Skydiving
Coolamundo.
out of the window. It's despicably
Skippy.
perilous.
Skydiving.
Out of the window. It's positively scandalous.
Wait and see.
I'm such a fun kind of guy.
For a second, I thought that was your first time seeing it, but I know that can't be true. I love it so much. the Robotnik and Tails relationship they keep doing in their videos is unironically so cute. I'm a classic Tails Kenny. Scoopy. 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 I gotta slap him a bit. You've never seen it before? Oh man. I thought everyone's seen it by now. I gotta share the playlist of please watch these when you can. All the YouTube poop music videos that I teach Vader made. Have you seen Hedgehog Stew? I feel like that's the catchiest one. I think I love skydiving the most just because of how cute Robotnik and Tails bonding over skydiving is. But I think Hedgehog Stew is like slightly catchier.
Quill presents
Okay,
Magnus Arc.
now for spooky doodlings. I'm so glad you enjoyed that. I feel like that's something fun about art streams is that because I'm just sitting here at the internet computer. I mean, I'm always streaming at the computer, but it's like it's a lot more likely to get sidetracked and just watch random videos or look at random images than in like a video game stream. Especially because you could like need to Google like a reference for a character and then go like see a picture or video and the results and be like, I gotta show you guys this.
Bosun's Call.
Okay, let me get the list up. Raven from the original Teen Titans. Fionakins Raven.
Look, Tim, I'd love to discuss this further, but as you can see, I have a record.
What's a reaction stream? Oh, like reacting to videos?
A few of them again, out of the question. It's just confusing, if not. Like the garbage man, Mr. Woodward. Yeah, so you said that Alan
I need to
Parfitt
turn
was
up.
reported missing
How's this audio?
in August 2009, which had actually be 6 months after the statement had been given. Obviously, it should have been 2008. I misspoke an 8 as a 9. What does it matter? Well, someone noticed. Who? Josh Cole. Great guy. He's one of the students using our resources for a dissertation. Oh, and here, in Miss Montauk's statement about her father's killings, you refer to case 9220611 as case 110692. Oh, and don't get me started on the other case numbers around the hilltop hauntings. They're a mess. Alleged hauntings. And who honestly cares if I misspoke case 9220611 as 110692? Another student? Well, actually, yes. Samantha Emery. She's lovely. She's actually doing a PhD in manifestation. I don't care.
Whoa.
It's not enough that Gertrude left us with such a pointlessly awkward filing system. Half the time she doesn't even stay consistent in her own records. To be honest with you, I don't really understand the system. Last 3 digits of the year, then the day, then the month. I don't know why she did it like that, but I can't change it now. Oh, okay. Alright, so what happens if more than one statement is given on the same day? I don't know. It never came up. Was there anything else? Oh, yeah, just one. Good lord. So, in case 8163103,
it isn't clear if Albrecht's
I'm
wife
glad
is
you
called
like our brain,
Clara
Faber.
or Carla, because you keep switching back and forth.
Well, I'm sorry if I found it hard to read a 200-year-old letter written in cursive by a native German speaker. Who complained about that one?
Oh, it's not a complaint. I just noticed, actually. Look, okay, I know you've been under a lot of pressure. It's not a big deal. I just think it might be worth re-recording these statements.
No, I don't have time. I still have a mountain of haphazard statements to get through, not to mention that I need to keep this wretched tape recorder on hand, just in case I encounter one of the files too stubborn to work on anything else, and when I do, I have to actually read the damn thing, which is
Whoa.
fine. It's fine. I just haven't been sleeping much these last few
Oh.
nights. What with all this worm
John, do you need a
business, which
hug?
reminds me, if you do see Elias, tell him thanks for the extra extinguishers.
Do you need a hug from a mouse?
Yeah, sure. It's getting bad. I mean, Martin keeps showing me his tongue and asking if it looks
What?
infested. So what do you want me to do about these errors?
I really don't care. But post it on the tapes or something. I'm not re-recording them. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yep, I'll let you get back to it.
Right. Oh. Still running. Okay. Statement of Carlita Sloane regarding her work on a container ship traveling to Southampton from Porto
Aww.
de Tucquay. Original statement given January the 2nd, 2011. Audio recording by Jonathan Sims, head archivist of the Magnus Institute.
I even saw
London.
drugs.
Statement begins. I've been working the shipping routes for years now, so I know there's plenty of messed up things can happen out there. You remember the old saying, worse things happen at sea? Well, let me tell you, it's just as true now as it ever was. But I've never seen weird like I saw when serving on the Tundra. I didn't even want the job, really, but I didn't have a lot of choice. We'd just hit Porto de Tucquay in Brazil in late November of last year when the ship I was on got stopped because of cargo irregularities. I don't know what it was. Might have been drugs, human trafficking. Might have just been a crooked harbour master looking for a kickback, but it didn't really matter. Point was, I had to jump ship. This wasn't an easy thing, though.
Scoopy biting Magnus.
A sailors' union should be recognised anywhere in the world, but when it came down to it, my membership of Nautilus, a UK union, meant nothing when I was trying to get a place on a cargo run coming out of Brazil. Didn't help that I'm a woman. A lot of people don't think shipping is a job for women. Hell, a lot of people who work on ships don't think it is. You don't see a lot of us in the trade, and every ounce of respect I got, some dick-waving asshole probably bled for. But that's fine. I can hold my own, and it hasn't been such a problem since I shaved my head. It was enough to keep me on land for a good few days, though, as I tried to find another ship to take me on. Well, that and my bad Spanish. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how relieved I was when I heard that a British ship had made port, the Tundra. Now, at that point, I was starting to get a bit desperate, so I was keen to go to the captain and just about beg passage. Screw my qualifications. If he needed, I'd sign on as a workaway. I could find a better position once I was somewhere I spoke the language properly. I eventually found the captain in a small bar in one of the seedier areas of the dockside. I'd been told his name was Peter Lucas, but to be honest, I wouldn't have needed his name. He was the only white guy in the place. Even by those standards, he was very pale. Weirdly so for someone who apparently lived their life on the sea. He sat there at a small table completely alone, drinking a cup of black coffee. He was staring into the distance and didn't seem to notice anything going on around him. I sat down opposite and coughed. His eyes only moved a fraction of an inch to focus on me, but it felt as though the movement had the weight of a heavy stone door. Like a tomb. Don't know why that's what popped into my head, but there you go. I asked if he was Peter Lucas, and he said yes. I'd gone blank on what to say next, and it was then that I
I
noticed
kind of feel
the
like I'm
silence.
playing Gardic phone.
I looked around to see that the place was now completely empty. Even the bartender was nowhere to be seen, and the only sound was the whir of the ceiling fans above us. The captain was still staring at me, so I swallowed my unease and began to explain my situation to him. I left out the part about the criminal possibilities of my last ship, but was clear that I was in desperate need of a new post. When I had finished, he was quiet for a few minutes. Then he nodded. "We have one space. Report tomorrow. At dawn." That was all he said, and it was all I needed. The Tundra wasn't difficult to find when I headed to the docks the next day. It was big, already stacked high with an array of colourful shipping containers. I wondered if they'd loaded it up overnight, as there didn't seem to be much activity from the crane. It was early, and I was glad I was leaving Brazil before the wet season really got going, as the sky was threatening to break. Making my way through the dock, I asked around until I was finally pointed to the mate. He was a short man, heavy-set, with a thick black beard. His warm brown skin was stained darker by a life working in the sun, and he didn't smile when he looked at me. Around his neck, I saw a chain ending in a small brass ball and stem. It looked like an old bosun's call, an antique sailor's whistle. I introduced myself, told him what I'd told the captain, and gave my qualifications and experience. The bearded mate listened quietly until I finished. Then he shrugged and said they were in need of an ordinary seaman, and I was welcome to the position if I wanted it. OS was a bit of a step down for me, as I'd been pulling able seaman's pay for these last few years, but it was a ticket out of Porto de Itaqui, so I jumped at the chance. The mate still didn't smile, but he did offer his hand, and introduced himself in a gentle Dutch accent as Thaddeus Dahl, first mate of the Tundra. I was surprised, as it seemed a bit abrupt to be leaving, and I hadn't even had time to stow away the duffel bag that was my only luggage. Still, I wasn't about to disobey the first order I'd been given on a new ship. The Tundra was pretty normal. I've served on a half-dozen ships almost identical to it, and I fell into my duties quickly. We set off almost as soon as I was on board, and it was only later I discovered we were heading across the Atlantic towards Southampton. I was very happy to find that out, as I had assumed we'd be making plenty more stops before crossing back to England. With
Why
any
does
luck,
he
it wouldn't
look
be
like
more
a
than a couple of weeks before I was
Castle
home.
Crashers
And those
enemy?
would be spent in maintenance, repainting, and taking watches with Iron Mike, the autopilot. So that was
Scooper, I
fine.
mean.
But I did start to notice a few things on board which didn't really seem to add up. The first was the crew. They were quiet. Very quiet. I mean, I've been
I
on
almost
ships where
forgot
I was
quiet.
pretty much the only native English speaker, and plenty of people prefer to keep to themselves. Hell, not being too comfortable around people is a damn fine reason to go to sea. This was different, though. It wasn't just that they didn't talk much. They seemed uncomfortable with me. They'd avoid eye contact and only barely acknowledge me if we were on shift together. At first, I thought it was because I was a woman, but then I saw that it wasn't just me. They
Ow.
avoided each other just as much as they did me. Meals were always quiet, no matter how many people were eating, and there was no friendly game of cards or chat in the living quarters. There was no real conversation in any language. It was like they were doing everything in their power not to think about each other. It took me less than a day of ignored hellos and grunted answers before I fell into line, becoming just as quiet as my crewmates. The only person who
He
spoke
would say that.
was Thaddeus Dahl. The mate would walk among the crew, giving instructions and orders in a dozen different languages as the crew scrambled to carry out his commands.
I'm gonna do Ghost
He was
with
just as
Ragnarok
composed
now.
as he had been when I met him, and it soon became clear that if he had emotions, he kept a tight wrap on them. He would stride along the ship, his antique whistle swinging from his neck. He never actually blew the bosun's call, apparently preferring to summon the crew via the intercom or horn. It just hung there, its polished brass heavy around his neck. I didn't see Captain Lucas at all that first week. I only knew he was on board because every mealtime the cooks would hand a tray of food to the mate, who'd take it up to the captain's cabin. We never saw the man himself, though. There was one crew member who did catch my eye. He was a young guy, white, and, from what I could tell, Scottish. I never really got more than his name out of him. Sean Kelly. He had the bunk opposite me, and we were on different shifts, so I would often see him lying there when I returned from my night watch. He didn't talk any more than the others, but he also didn't go around with that blank look on his face. He looked scared. There were other odd things about the ship, but hands down the weirdest thing I didn't notice until a few days out into the Atlantic. Now, one of my duties was to check the deck containers were securely in place. None of the twist locks or lashing rods had broken or come loose. It was usually just busy work. I'd never been on a ship that lost a container, though it does happen. This shift, though, I noticed something wrong. I saw that one of the lashing rods towards the stern had broken, and not at one of the ends, or the twist lock itself, but right in the middle of what should have been solid metal. From a distance it looked fine, new paint shining in the sun, but looking closer I saw that it had rusted all the way through. Not just that, but checking out where the rod connected to the container, it became clear that they had rusted together. Fresh paint covered up most of it, but once I knew what I was looking for, I saw it everywhere. The shipping containers, all of them, were rusted in place. How could this have happened, though, if they were being changed over at port? How long had the Tundra been sailing with the same cargo? I decided I had to look inside. Stupid, maybe. If it was something illegal, they might toss me overboard first and ask questions never, but only if I got caught. And I was just about sick of nasty surprises. I did it on my next late shift. I kept an eye on the rest of the crew and waited for my moment. I'd already marked out a ground-level container where the padlock had practically rusted off. It wouldn't be difficult to get it open. It was about 3 a.m. when I had my chance. I was alone on deck, and the wind was howling, loud enough to muffle the groan of the container's rusted hinges. It took 3 kicks from my steel toe caps to get it open, but finally I was able to get the door ajar. It was so stiff it took almost all my strength to get enough of a gap to walk through, but finally I could see inside. It was completely empty. There was no sign of cargo or any markings or debris on the floor that might have shown that there had ever been anything inside. I couldn't believe it. A transport ship with nothing to transport. It didn't make any sense. I managed to bust 2 other containers open, but they were the same. As far as I could tell, every container on the ship was empty. I was still trying to figure out what this could mean when I saw a couple of torches approaching. I almost panicked and ran, but where exactly was I going to escape to? The empty, uncaring ocean stretched out for hundreds of miles in every direction. So instead I swallowed my fear and pushed the door carefully closed, trying my best to hide the broken lock before making my way onto the deck. I was met by the mate and a half-dozen other crewmen behind him. He looked at me for a second, then nodded and told me to follow. Then he continued walking. Confused, I headed after them as they made their way around the ship, silently collecting up or waking all the rest of the crew. I started to ask what was going on, but the glares I got shut me right up. Finally, when we had what looked like the whole crew together, we walked over to the lifeboat. Now, we definitely weren't sinking, so I hadn't really paid much attention to the
It's got
lifeboat
plus
before,
for eyes,
but now
right?
that I looked at it, I realized it wasn't what I'd have expected. Most modern container ships have a lifeboat that looks more like a lumpy orange blob than a boat. They're designed to be quickly and safely dropped into the water and tough out whatever
got a
conditions the sea
reference.
might throw at them. But this was an old-fashioned boat, with oars and a winch mechanism for lowering it into the water. It didn't even look like it had any supplies in it.
Oh.
Standing there in front of it was Captain Lucas, as silent as the rest of his crew. The captain nodded, and one by
Forgot
one
about
the
this.
crew of the Tundra got on board the lifeboat. I got on too. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? I didn't know what was going on, and no one seemed to want to tell me, but I sure as hell wasn't getting left alone on that big empty ship. So I got in and sat down, as a couple of the crew began to lower the lifeboat into the sea. A few others took up the oars, and as soon as we hit the water, they began to row quietly away from the tundra, which floated, motionless. The sky was clear, and the wind had died down, so the stars reflected perfectly on the still ocean surface. All the lights on the ship had been turned off, so the world and all the empty horizon was only lit by the moon. As we rowed, I looked around my companions on the lifeboat. Everyone I recognized was there, except for one. I checked each face in turn, but I could see no sign of Sean Kelly, my scared bunkmate. Had we left him behind? Was he still back on the ship, sleeping away, ignorant of the fact that he was now utterly and completely alone? Almost as though he knew I was about to speak, Thaddeus gave me a warning glare. The mate reached down and took the old brass whistle from his neck. He pressed it to his lips and blew. I have never heard a whistle sound like that. It was shrill, so high and piercing that I felt my hair stand on end, but it also seemed distant, like I was hearing it from far, far away. I don't know how long he blew that bosun's call for, but by the end, I realized we were surrounded by a thick sea smoke. We should have been too far south for it, but it rolled and billowed around the lifeboat, obscuring the tundra. No one said a word, but I could have sworn a few of my shipmates were crying. I don't know how long we floated there, sat in the dark water, but eventually the fog cleared, and the mate sounded the bosun's call again, this time a short, sharp whistle. We saw the tundra, dark and still upon the water, and began to row back towards it. The lifeboat was painstakingly raised, and the rest of the crew returned to their positions. Sean Kelly was nowhere to be seen, and I never saw him again. After that night, the atmosphere on board changed. People talked, and you'd occasionally hear actual laughter. Games were played, people drank, and there was this sense of relief to it all. I tried to join in, but got dark looks any time I asked about Sean. At one point, the third mate, a man named Kim Duong, told me that I should shut up and be grateful, as it hadn't been an easy choice. I kept to myself the rest of the way and left the ship as soon as we landed in Southampton. I didn't even think about my pay until it came through a couple of days later. £25,000 for barely 2 weeks' work. I don't mind telling you, it was almost enough to tempt me back. Almost. Statement ends. An interesting statement, though difficult to investigate any potentially paranormal activity, as there does not appear to have been anything explicitly supernatural occurring in this statement. A lot of strange happenings and implicit weirdness, but nothing that can be isolated as a supernatural event. There's also the fact that even a casual search of Port Authority records shows the Tundra is a currently active cargo ship operating for Solace Shipping plc, a company founded and majority owned by Nathaniel Lucas. In addition to such business ventures, the Lucas family also provides funding to several academic and research organizations, including the Magnus Institute. Much as I want to dig further into this, especially given certain parallels with case 0161301, Elias gets very twitchy when we look into anything that might conceivably have funding repercussions. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do any further investigations into this, even though the official crew manifest for the Tundra has remained the same for the last 10 years, even though I can't find any record of actual cargo being loaded or unloaded into it from any UK port, even though Sean Kelly disappeared from the port of Felixstowe in October 2010, and his body washed up on the coast of Morocco in April 2011, 6 months later. According to the coroner, it had only been in the water for 5 days. Maybe I'll mention it to Elias, just in case. End recording.
The Magnus Archives is a podcast distributed by rustyquill.com and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike International license. Today's episode was written and performed by Jonathan Sims. It was produced by Alexander J. Newell and Mike LeBeau, and directed by Alexander J. Newell. To comment on episodes, make donations and view links, images, videos, and show notes, visit rustyquill.com. Rate and review us on iTunes, visit us on Facebook, tweet us on Twitter at The Rusty Quill, or email us at mail@rustyquill.com. Thanks for listening.
This is Ghost sharing a can with Krona, by the way.
Rusty Quill presents The Magnus
a
Archives.
can for me.
Episode 34. Anatomy Class.
Krona is so tall. Krona tall.
Apologies for the somewhat archaic...
No need to worry, I understand. Some things you just can't trust to computers. It's like I always say about those robotic surgery machines. It's just not the same. If I'm going to be operating on a man's pancreas, I want to feel that pancreas. Fiddling with a joystick just won't cut it, as it were.
I didn't think you still performed surgery.
I keep up with the developments. And I remember the feel of a pancreas.
Well, quite. Now, if you'd be so good as to...
You know you have an infestation, don't you?
Excuse me? I'm not sure that...
Yes, little grey maggot things. I saw a few on the way in. Don't recognize the species, but I'd say you need to get the exterminators in here. Gas the little blighters.
You saw them. You weren't bitten, were you?
Bitten? They're worms. Still, I'll admit I don't like the look of them. I reckon the sooner you get someone in to kill them dead, the better.
We've tried, believe me. Now, shall we?
Oh, certainly. Where do you want me to start? The bones? Blood? The fruit?
Right from the beginning. 1 second. Statement of Dr. Lionel Elliot regarding a series of events that took place during his class...
Introduction to Human Anatomy and Physiology.
At King's College, London, in early 2016. Statement recorded direct from subject, 12th July 2016. Statement begins.
Now?
Yes, just start from the beginning.
Right. Well, I shouldn't even have been teaching the class, really. As far as I knew, I wasn't going to be needed for any teaching on the biomedical engineering course this year. I can't say I was particularly upset. The human anatomy module is where a lot of the engineers discover just how messy the human body is. And while the human heart is a phenomenal piece of machinery in terms of design and function, most of the students would be more comfortable holding a transistor. Not to put too fine a point on it, I get tired of squeamish students, and was glad that I could avoid it this year. You can perhaps imagine, then, that I was not best pleased when Elena Bauer, the admissions officer, emailed me last November to say that there had been a mistake, and I was needed to take a spillover class. Apparently, the system had accepted more students for the course than there were places, and they were trying to organize an additional class for the 7 who were unassigned. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. Anatomy class wasn't until the 2nd term, so surely this mistake should have emerged earlier. But Elena kept saying she didn't know. She just had 7 students who needed tutorials. I won't pretend I took the news gracefully. I have a lot of research due shortly, and, well, you know academia. Never enough hours in the day. Still, I was the only staff member both qualified to teach the class and technically free when it had to be scheduled. So I agreed, although that really makes it sound like I had more of a choice than I actually did. I didn't meet the students until the module started this January. I wasn't responsible for any of the lectures, so the first time I saw them was in our initial class tutorial. They all sat there, all 7, staring at me, and I felt oddly uncomfortable. There was nothing wrong with them, of course. Nothing strange to see or to look at. Just, well, this is going to sound stupid to say out loud, but I don't remember what they looked like. Any of them. I remember that each wore blue jeans and a white shirt. Though they were all different makes and styles, I think one of the girls had a skirt instead. I must have noticed that they were wearing the same outfits, but it didn't strike me as odd. They all just looked so normal, unremarkable. I remember their names, though, from the register. They stuck with me, maybe because they were such an international group. There was Erika Musterman, Jan Novak, Pyotr and Pavel Petrov, who I think were brothers, maybe twins. John Doe, Falana Al-Falani, and Juan Perez. I greeted them when I entered the room and was met with silence. Not a malicious or angry silence, just silence. I've never been self-conscious when teaching, but walking to my seat with those 14 eyes just watching me, it made me ever so slightly uncomfortable. I got the oddest feeling that they were judging my walk. The class began, and we started going over some of the basics of anatomy and how the body works. They started to talk then, and some of my unease left me. I don't remember exactly what was said. After doing it long enough, most tutorials just kind of blur together a bit. But I recall being struck by just how basic some of their questions were. The composition of blood, where in the body the various organs sat. The sort of thing that anyone who's done a science GCSE should know. I was almost tempted to ask where they went to school. At the time, I didn't question the fact that they must have all gone to the same school. Aside from that, it was mostly normal, except about halfway through the tutorial, we discussed the lungs and respiration, inhalation, alveoli, etc. As I said, basic stuff. But I paused afterwards just to have a think about where to go next, and I heard the sound of them breathing. That's not abnormal, I know, but it seemed to fill the silence so suddenly and all at once. I could have sworn that I didn't actually hear it before that moment. Like they'd only just then started breathing. which is absurd, obviously. I was probably just listening out for it because we'd been discussing the lungs. Even so, it was disconcerting, and I don't mind telling you that I breathed quite a sigh of relief myself when the tutorial was over and I could get out of there. Now, I consider myself a conscientious worker, and in all my years at King's, I can count on one hand the number of times I've called in sick. But when the time came for the next tutorial with this class, I had to stay home with a migraine. It wasn't a lie, exactly. The thought of sitting there for another 2 hours with those staring, placid eyes gave me such a spell of anxiety that my brain felt like it was being stabbed with a shard of ice. I did have to teach them eventually, of course. I couldn't avoid it forever. Re-entering that room, though, all of them were sat in the exact same positions, in the exact same clothes, their breathing deliberate and almost pointed. When Erika Musterman, or was it Jan Novak, said good morning, the others followed suit, one by one, and I had to fight the urge to run. It struck me then that, despite how diverse their names were, none of them seemed to have any noticeable accent. Not that it did anything to reassure me. There was no one else who could take the tutorials. Believe me, I did everything I could to try and find a replacement. Still, once I got used to their stares, their silence, and the fact that their questions were both specific and oddly basic, One of the Petrovs once asked me how sharp are the knees meant to be. Well, it was just about tolerable. I'm a bit ashamed to admit it, but I came to terms with the fact that I didn't care if they passed any exams. And that actually made the whole affair more manageable. I just did my best to stop caring. And then came our first of 2 sessions in the dissection room. We were looking at the skeleton. I had been dreading this. Given exactly how creepy and unsettling the students were just sat in a classroom, the idea of what they could do when given access to human remains made me feel quite nauseous. But I couldn't bring myself to leave them there alone, so I went. It was even worse than I'd feared. Seeing them stood there over the bits of cadaver, their faces, normally so neutral, were alive with... what was it I saw? Excitement? Curiosity? Hunger?
Hunger.
Whatever it was, it didn't reach their eyes. Still staring and blank. I went through the procedures with them and tried my best to keep the trembling out of my voice.
I'm glad
When
it
Falan
is.
reached for a scalpel and started cutting into our samples, I felt faint. I was trying to keep an eye on everyone, but the dissection tables were arranged in a semicircle around the lab, and each time I turned to face one of the students, I began to hear this cracking sound from whichever tables I wasn't looking at. Like a snapping bone or a rib cage being forced open. I'd turn back and see nothing untoward. Just John or Erica or Juan or whoever it was looking at me quizzically over distinctly unbroken bones. But it kept happening. Whenever I wasn't looking, I heard the crunch and the crack of bone. I couldn't ask about it. I knew the dead-eyed, mute stare they'd give me if I did, and I just couldn't face that. Finally, I managed to position myself so that I could see what was happening behind me in the reflective edge of the metal table. It wasn't much, but I could see a slightly warped image. It was Pavel in this case. I saw him pick up a bone, a radius, I believe, from the forearm. He held it up next to his own arm, and then there came that snapping, crunching noise. I swear I saw his arm distend itself, the skin shifting as something inside changed and rearranged until it matched the length of bone he was holding up to it. I tried not to react, not to make a noise at this mad impossibility that I saw. I couldn't help it, though, and my legs gave out. I collapsed on the floor with a whimpering cry. None of them looked at me. None of them offered to help me up. None of them gave any reaction at all. I shut my eyes tight as that cracking sound began to come from every direction, as all 7 of them began to change themselves. It went on for almost half an hour until our allotted time in the lab ended. And then they left, walking past me, still sat helpless on the floor. As they did, each of them thanked me for the lesson as though nothing had happened. And I swear that every single one of them was taller than when they started. I started taking more sick leave after that. I avoided their tutorials as often as possible, and when I did go, we largely just sat there in silence until one of them asked me a question about human anatomy, which I would reluctantly answer. I know I should have just abandoned them entirely. If they were going to complain to anyone, they would have done it already, but even then I was worried my colleagues might notice, and I really didn't want to get a reputation as some absentee tutor. It didn't help that a colleague of mine, Dr. Laura Gill, once expressed surprise on learning that I'd been absent the day before, as apparently she'd passed by my teaching room and my anatomy class had just been sat there, waiting quietly. The thought of them politely filing to every tutorial just sat there, blank and staring, whether I was there or not, just waiting. To be quite frank, I think that bothered me almost more than being sat there with them. Still, I managed largely to avoid them until the 21st of March, when they had their second lab dissection. Hearts. I'm not an idiot. I was well aware of the sort of sinister nonsense that was likely to happen if I went, but I also knew by now that they would attend whether or not I was there. And and to leave them in a lab unsupervised would be the sort of thing that would actually get me fired from my position. It was a rainy morning. I remember that because I deliberately didn't put up an umbrella. Something inside me was so dreading what was going to happen that the very act of opening umbrella seemed pointless. As though my being dry couldn't stop what was coming. There was no reason not to get soaked. So I was dripping wet when I entered the lab, and my glasses had steamed up to the point where I could no longer see through them. When I wiped them clean, they revealed those 7 blank faces, utterly unconcerned with my sodden state. Each had somehow got the heart laid out in front of them on the dissection tray. I decided not to prolong it and waved them to start. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought they'd descend into some sort of feeding frenzy, but they didn't. They just began to dissect the hearts, as any other class would, occasionally asking me polite questions. I was so taken aback at how normal the whole situation seemed to be that it took me some time to actually answer them. I did, though, and the first hour of the class almost put me at least a little bit at ease. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Maybe they were doing weird things to their insides, but if it was the heart, then I couldn't see it and I couldn't hear it. And I'd long since decided with this class that if I couldn't see or hear it, I didn't care. Then Erica Musterman held up her heart and looked at me. I began to get that sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach as she asked me, "How does the heart pump blood?" I started to explain the biological mechanisms of the heart pumping when she shook her head slowly and said, "What does it look like?" And then when I didn't answer, "Is it like this?"
Uh-oh.
The heart in her hand began to spasm. Not like the regular rhythmic pulse of a heartbeat, but like a balloon being rapidly squeezed at one end. Bits of it swelled and stretched and distorted, seemingly at random, and blood began to flow haphazardly from the ventricles, dripping down Erica's forearm and dribbling onto the floor. I stood there,
Hang on.
staring at this horrible miracle.
I googled Katsuki Bakugo to get references. Why does this exist? This came right up. Why does it? Why is he naked? Why? Why? Put some clothes on that guy, please. Story reminds Doctor Who episode of the 2-dimensional creature dissecting humans. Ooh.
From when behind her I see Falan raise his heart, saying, "That's not what it's like." And blood starts to gush from all over his heart in tiny geysers, shooting in every direction. Soon each of them is holding a heart up, each pumping and throbbing differently, blood leaking, spurting out of them in a different way, a different nightmare. They wanted me to tell them which was right. I don't know how long I stared before I finally raised my hand to point at Jan Novak, who seemed to have the closest to an accurate impression of a regular human heartbeat. Then I turned and walked out of the lab. I spent the rest of the day sat in the staff room, waiting for someone to come running in, screaming about the lab being full of blood. I expected questions I couldn't answer and immediate termination, but nothing happened. No one came. When I returned to the lab several hours later, there was no sign of any blood, except for the tiniest speck dried into a tile crack in the corner. Unless that had been there before? I don't know. My shoes were still speckled with blood, though, so I know I wasn't hallucinating it. I checked with Dr. Gill, confirmed that she could see the spots, though I neglected to tell her it was blood. I had no intention of inviting further questions. I missed the next 3 tutorials. I just stayed at home, but something wouldn't let me just simply let it go. Finally, I made a decision. I wanted to see where they lived. I felt like I needed to, for some reason. Needed to see if they existed outside of my class, outside of my mind. I asked Elena, and irregular as it was, she gave me the address. It didn't surprise me to find out they all lived in the same place. A semi-detached house on Kingsland Road in Newham. I'm afraid I don't remember the number, and the details have disappeared from the college systems. The house itself was run down, as might have been expected, and I must have spent a good 15 minutes just stood in front of it, waiting for the courage to approach. Finally, I knocked on the door. The wood was old and dry, and some flaked off under my knuckles. It opened immediately, and there stood Jan Novak. When she saw me, her mouth twisted into something I think was meant to be a smile. "Hello," she said. "Have you come to give us more lessons? We would like to learn about the liver." Her eyes locked onto my abdomen. I was about to reply when a muffled scream of pain came from somewhere deep inside the house. It sounded ragged, like whoever was crying out had been gagged. I looked to Jan Novak, who showed no indication she had heard it, still staring at where I taught her my liver would be. I ran, and she watched me go without moving. I did call the police, but they just told me that the house was currently unoccupied and they'd found no evidence that there had been anyone present. I took great pains never to see that class again. I avoided all tutorials and simply waited until the end of term. I haven't seen them since.
That's it?
Not quite. There was one other thing. When I went to the classroom shortly after what should have been their final tutorial, I found something on the desk. It was an apple.
Apple.
Next to it was a handwritten note that said, "Thank you for teaching us the insides." I burned the note, just in case.
And the apple? Did you eat it?
Do I look like an idiot? Of course not. I cut it in half first to check if it was off.
And?
Human teeth. Inside were human teeth, arranged in a smile. Here, I brought you the two halves to see for yourselves.
Oh, good lord, that's...
Deeply unpleasant, yes. You can keep it if you want, as a proof.
We do not want it. I'm afraid it isn't really proof. Someone could have stuck those teeth in after the apple had been cut.
You think I would do that?
I didn't say you would. I just said it was enough of a possibility that I don't think your tooth apple has a place in our artifact storage. Also, it is technically medical waste.
Fine. I'll dispose of it myself. Now, is there anything else you want with me?
Wait,
No. This should...
line's on the bottom, right?
We'll investigate and get back to you if we find anything.
Go ahead.
Statement ends.
And he gets
The
really
first thing
angry.
about this statement that makes me dubious is that it comes from a fellow academic. Historic and prestigious as the Magnus Institute is, there are still many within the sphere of higher education that do not grant it the respect it deserves. And some have been known to make false statements as ill-conceived jokes. Another mark against the veracity of the statement is the names of the students. A quick internet search reveals Erika Mustermann as the official German placeholder name, similar to the English name John Doe. The same is true of the other names. Juan Perez is the generic name of choice in most Spanish-speaking countries, Fulan al-Fulani in the Middle East, etc. It seems strange to me that Dr. Elliot would fail to take note of this. Still, Tim made contact with Elena Bauer in the King's Administration Office, and while she couldn't find any actual records of them in the system, she does remember them being there, and confirms that she assigned them to Dr. Elliot last year. She could be in on it, of course, but Tim seems to believe her. There's also the matter of the teeth. I stand by my assessment that there is no evidence they were placed there by supernatural means, but it does seem an awfully long way to go for a bad joke. In the end, we did send them off to a dental specialist, but they weren't able to tell us much beyond the fact that they all seemed like healthy adult teeth, and most of them appeared to come from different people. There's not much more we can do to follow this up. Without dedicating additional time, we can't afford. The only other lead was Sasha's discovery that early last year, Dr. Rashid Sadana took his own life. There's no direct connection, except that he taught the Anatomy, Physiology and Pathology for Complementary Therapies course at St. Mary's University, and the only note found near the body simply read, "Not to be used for teaching." End recording. The Magnus Archives is a podcast distributed by rustyquill.com and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike International License. Today's episode was written and performed by Jonathan Sims. It was produced by Alexander J. Newell and Mike LeBeau, and directed by Alexander J. Newell. To comment on episodes, make donations and view links, images, videos, and show notes, visit rustyquill.com. Rate and review us on iTunes, visit us on Facebook, tweet us on Twitter @TheRustyQuill, or email us at mail@rustyquill.com. Thanks for listening.
Creepy. I wonder if anyone's drawn fan art of the teeth apple.
Rusty Quill presents The Magnus Archives.
Aha! They have.
Episode 35.
Oh, this is...
Old Passages.
Is this like an official shirt? Or hoodie? You can get the teeth apple as a hoodie. What color would you like your teeth apple shirt in?
Statement of Harold
Lots of
Silvana
shirts.
regarding
Colors,
discoveries
I mean.
made during the renovation of the Reform Club, Pall Mall. Original statement given June 4th, 2002. Audio recording by Jonathan Sims, Head Archivist of the Magnus Institute, London. Statement begins.
There's so much merch of the teeth apple.
I'm a builder, sort of. I always find myself using the word craftsman or artisan, but that's mostly because of my client base. I specialize in renovation and alterations on listed
You like a
buildings
teeth apple
and
pillow?
those of historical or architectural significance. In simple terms, it's not much different to any other
Think
sort of
about it,
construction
okay?
work, except it takes about 3 times as long and costs 10 times as much. That's not to say I rip people off. You need to spend almost half the time just planning exactly how you're going to tackle any given job, while preserving or recreating the original architecture as much as possible. And then you have to be incredibly careful when you're doing the work. I'm quite serious when I say that if you're not paying attention and keeping the alterations well documented, you can get sued for millions over knocking out the wrong brick. Plus the materials aren't cheap. So yes, my services are expensive, but me and my team are worth every penny.
Oh,
And the sort of
good night,
people I deal with,
Noel.
or should I say the sort of people whose personal assistants I deal with, can afford it. I don't have a company per se. People hire me for me, and I have a small team I trust to help out with the work itself. They're technically
Might
freelance
just do
contractors, but the pay's good enough.
one Magnus archive listening, and however many doobles I get done, I'll
In
get
London,
done.
at least, there's enough work that they're happy to wait on my call.
Sounds it a little
I
sleepy.
found plenty of interesting things in this job. I suppose that's not unexpected when you're digging around old buildings.
We got kicked off a job once when we found some bones under a very venerable country house that will remain nameless, as the owners contacted the British Museum, who couldn't take over fast enough. There have also been a few jewellery pieces that found their way to other museums, and once we found a box of 17th century erotic poems that I think are currently languishing in the storerooms of the V&A Museum, but I never found anything like what was under 100 Pall Mall. We'd been called in to do some work on the basement and ground floor of the Reform Club. It wasn't anything major, some upkeep on a few of the historic pieces, replace a few of the earlier renovations. The amount of actual work involved was minimal, but it was a Grade 1 listed building, so the amount of care we had to take stretched it into a week-long job. It didn't help that we had to schedule around the fact that it's still a very active social venue, so we could only actually come out of the basement when it wasn't full of people too important to see builders. Grade 1 listing is a significant payday, though, so I certainly wasn't going to rock the boat. It was about 2 in the morning when the kid showed up. It was just me and Rachel Turley, who does most of our marble work, though we were mostly just doing surveying at that point. Alfred Bartlett was out getting coffee, though God knows where from at that time of night. We were just
From
kicking
the
our
coffee
heels,
store.
really, since he's the plumber and we needed his expertise. Now, Alf has been in the business for nearly 40 years, and there wasn't a thing he didn't know about water or sewage systems. But we often joke that it's pushed everything else out of his head. I think he must have forgotten to lock the door when he headed out, and that's how the kid got in. That said, this was still the first week in March, and it was pretty cold, so I'm surprised we didn't notice the draft. In the end, I suppose it doesn't matter. The fact is that Rachel and I had been sat there chatting for maybe 5 minutes when we noticed we weren't alone. In the doorway, leading back to the stairwell, stood a thin figure. He looked to be in his late teens, I'd guess. He was dressed all in black, with heavy-looking boots and a t-shirt with
Is it
the
Skitter?
logo of some band emblazoned on it, Megadon or Mastodon or something like that. His hair was long and greasy, almost down to his shoulders, and looked to be dyed almost the same black as his clothes. Did not look like he was supposed to be skulking around the Reform Club, but I had encountered more than one member whose rich children were going through a rebellious period, so couldn't be entirely sure. I decided to be gentle in my initial inquiries and asked him if he was lost. Told him this part of the basement was off-limits due to renovations. The kid shook his head and asked if we'd found anything yet. Any of Leitner's pages. Now this took me aback a bit. I wondered how long he'd been standing there, because Rachel and I had just been talking about the man. Jürgen Leitner was a businessman from Norway, I believe, who used to have offices in the ground floor of the building next to the Reform Club at 100 Pall Mall. I don't know what his business was, but when I was first getting started, back in '87, we got a call from Mr. Leitner requesting a consultation in his Pall Mall office. At that point it was just me and Rachel, and we mostly did stone restoration and alteration, so we assumed Mr. Leitner wanted our opinion on a property outside of London. Our reputation back then was not sufficient to get us access to any of these sort of central London buildings we now work on. When we first met Jürgen Leitner, he looked very much like I had imagined him. Portly, middle-aged, short blonde hair in the middle of going grey, well-tailored business suit. His office surprised me, though, as it was almost completely bare, save for a desk and 2 chairs in front of it. There were no tables or bookshelves or filing cabinets or anything like that. He asked us to sit down, and though he spoke with a very faint accent, his English was perfect. We made small talk, but he seemed impatient, eager to talk about whatever it was he wanted us to do. I asked him what the job was, and he stopped and looked at us closely. Then he said he simply wanted us to dig a hole. An unusual request, but not an unreasonable one, so I asked him whereabouts this was going to be.
Oh.
He rose, walked over to the corner, and pointed at the floor. He said he needed a hole put through the floor. I thought there would have been a basement under there, and he said, no, the building's basement didn't go under these rooms. He smiled an odd little smile as he said it, which put me a bit on edge. Now, there was no way we could do a job like that without the building owner's permission, and I told Leitner this. He began to get shifty then, and tried to tell us he already had the permission. When we told him we needed to confirm it with the commercial landlord, he got very defensive, told us that it was fine and he'd need to discuss it with some other contractors first. When we told him we'd just needed to have a quick phone call with the owner, he started screaming that we didn't understand what we were talking about, that he didn't need to explain himself to the likes of us, and there were some things that were too important, too powerful to be owned. Then he just started yelling at us in Norwegian until we left. We didn't bother contacting the owners of 100 Pall Mall in the end. It was, without a doubt, the weirdest interview with a prospective client that we'd ever had, and being so close to the site of it had Rachel and I reminiscing when this teenage burnout turned up. I asked him if he'd been eavesdropping, and he shrugged, and again asked what we had found. I was just about done with this kid, and started to tell him that he was going to have to leave, when Rachel interrupted me and asked what there was to find. The kid laughed, as though he and Rachel were in on some private joke. "Can you smell it?" he said, and for a brief moment I could smell something. Damp old stone and musty paper, just a faint whiff. It took me off guard, and I think that was why I just stood there as he walked past me and picked up the hammer. He strode over to one of the walls and, with a swing far stronger than I would have thought possible from his age and skinny frame, he buried it into the wall. I heard a scream, high-pitched, but it definitely didn't come from any of us. This was enough to break me out of my stupor, and I ran over and wrestled the hammer from the kid. He struggled and flailed, though he didn't say anything. As I tried to calm him down, Rachel called me over, and I looked at where he'd hit the wall. In the center of it was a neat hole.
Oh.
The other side was darkness. There shouldn't have been anything behind the wall except foundation. But it didn't look like this was a real basement wall. I let the kid go and walked over to get a closer look. Rachel started to examine it with her tools before she confirmed what I'd already guessed, that it was a fake. It looked like someone had blocked off a passage and then very carefully disguised it. It was at this point that Alf returned, and we had some considerable explaining to do. Through it all, the kid, who said his name was Jared, just sat there sullenly, listening to his CD player and waiting. When we asked him how he knew what was behind that wall, he just shrugged and told us that his mother knows all about this stuff. He didn't elaborate as to what this stuff might have been.
Oh.
We should have waited until morning and told the Reform Club staff what we'd found. We should have handed Jared over to the police, but Alf was always too curious for his own good, and he suggested we have a look inside. Rachel and I half-heartedly tried to argue against it, but I think deep down we wanted to know just as much as he did, so in we went. Knocking through the rest of the wall didn't take long. It had been built to look like the rest of the basement, but hadn't been constructed with the same skill. 10 minutes later, our coffees lay forgotten on the floor, and we stood before a passageway leading off into the musty darkness. A gentle breeze blew from this entrance, which didn't make any sense at all. We had plenty of torches, as you often need them during night work, so we each took one large one and a smaller backup in case the first had any problems. We tried to tell Jared to stay outside, but I could see immediately that, short of tying him up, there was no way we were going to keep him out of there. Tying him up did feel like a step too far, so we settled for keeping a close eye on him as we went inside. The passageway was cold, and the air thick with mildew, but the stone walls were in very good condition. Rachel said it looked to be from the mid-19th century, probably remains of the basement of the Carlton Club, which used to be located in what was now 100 Pall Mall. It was with a start that I realized that she was right. Based on where the corridor was going, we must have been underneath the building, almost exactly where Jürgen Leitner had wanted us to dig almost 15 years ago. We walked for some time, longer than I would have expected, given how big I remembered the building above us being. Alf kept asking Rachel if the corridor was getting narrower, and every time she would dutifully measure the width and inform him that no, it was exactly 5 feet wide. I couldn't blame him, really. I've never had any sort of
claustrophobia, but I was finding it hard at points to catch my breath, to dismiss the feeling that the walls were pressing on me. Jared walked on ahead, seemingly unbothered by the place. We came to a crossroads, or more precisely a star. The chamber was small, round, and featureless, but there were doorways leading out in a circle. I counted 13, not including the one we had come in from. Looking down some of them made me feel oddly queasy. There was one that, for all the world, it felt like I was going to fall into it. Another was so dark that our torches didn't seem to reach more than a few feet inside. In the center, there was a date stone. It read, Robert Smirk, 1835, Balance and Fear. I don't know how much you know about famous London architects, but Robert Smirk was one of the foremost proponents of the Gothic revival in the early 19th century. His work was some of the first to use concrete and cast iron, and often described as theatrical, a description that makes a lot of sense when you look at the grand columns of the British Museum, his most famous building. Later, I would look up a list of his works and discover that he had indeed built the Carlton Club in that exact spot. It had been destroyed in the Second World War during the Blitz, and the club itself had moved premises, but it looked like the underground foundations, or whatever this place was, had not been damaged. We stood there for some time as I explained this to the others. It took some time to do so, as, with the exception of Jared, I got the impression that none of us were in any hurry to go down the other tunnels. A deep apprehension seemed to have settled itself in the pit of my stomach, and everyone else also seemed to feel it. Then, without warning, Jared started running full pelt into one of the passages. I'm not sure which one it was of the 13. I called to him to come back, but got no reply, and Alf took off after him, running into the darkness and quickly turning a corner. Rachel and I looked at each other for a few seconds, but we both knew what we needed to be doing. I followed Alf into the passage, while she headed back down to the entrance to get help. This tunnel wasn't as dark as some of the others, but it was damper. The walls seemed oddly slimy. After a few yards, the stone became so slick that I found it hard to keep my footing, and I fell. I put my hand onto the floor to push myself up, and it came away faintly tinged with red. I heard Alf cry out from further down the corridor. He sounded utterly terrified, and I started on towards him again. I saw lights from up ahead, and was about to call out when Jared came running back out of the darkness. He was clutching a book in his hands, and clearly wasn't paying attention to where he was going. He barreled right into me, knocking me to the floor again. He was only a skinny kid, but he was so strong, and kept his footing, disappearing back into the darkness towards the entrance. As he passed, I heard a small clattering sound, as though something were falling behind him. I reached out slowly to try and raise myself off the ground, and felt something small and oddly smooth lying there.
Was it me?
I shined my light on it, and saw a small bone, from a
That's
bird,
not
I think, or maybe a rat. I
That
looked
is
around at them. There were a few more scattered about the corridor. I'd fallen harder this time, and managed to hurt my knee quite badly. I was just about able to limp to the end of the corridor, and there I found a small, round room. Against the walls were old bookshelves, decayed and empty, save for a few mouldering pages. They were stained and rotten, and one of them looked like it had a mummified hand laying on it. In front of that one, in almost the center of the room, lay Alf. He was dead. I couldn't see any injuries on him. He didn't even seem hurt. But looking at how still he lay there, the terrified, awful expression frozen on his face, there was no chance that he was alive. On his motionless chest, and around the base of the bookshelf, I saw more of those tiny bones. That's where my memory begins to blur. I know I made it back to the basement of the Reform Club, where Rachel was waiting with the police, but but I think I got some of the wrong passageways first. I have the vaguest memory. Flashes of a pile of paper completely covered in cobweb. A figure stood in the darkness. A stranger I didn't know, but was sure meant me harm. My skin burning, hot, choking on smoke down there in the dark. When I was out, I was questioned by the police, who followed Rachel in to retrieve Alf's body, and were successful, though they came back out pale and shaking. There was no sign of Jared, nor had Rachel seen him. I was then questioned again by the staff of the Reform Club, who instructed us in no uncertain terms to rebuild the wall and finish our original job. We were given to understand that the police were handling the matter, and if we pursued it closer, then we would not be getting any further work from members of the club. As this covers almost everybody who can afford our services, we complied. It makes me feel sick, though. Like we're just abandoning Alf, dishonoring his memory. It's not even like he had any family to miss him. It just feels wrong. I guess maybe that's why I'm talking to you.
Hi.
Try to keep my name out of it if you follow it up, though.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Statement ends. On the
I'll
one
try.
hand, this statement represents a complete dead end, as no one involved is both able and willing to talk to us. Over the last 3 months, Sasha has attempted to contact Mr. Silvana, Rachel Turley, the management of the Reform Club, and any of the police officers involved. All of them flatly deny any of this ever took place. Alfred Bartlett's death was listed as a heart attack, suffered during routine maintenance work, and none of the coroner's reports provide any details out of the ordinary. The kid, who I think it is reasonable to assume is none other than Jared Key, remains just as impossible to contact as he ever was. From an evidence standpoint, this case is a complete bust. However, too many of the names and features match with other statements for me to dismiss it, not to mention the fact that business records do list Jürgen Leitner as having hired out an office on the ground floor of 100 Pall Mall between 1985 and 1994. He was, apparently, one of the premier worldwide dealers in rare and antique books at the time, with items selling for the sort of sums where an office in Pall Mall doesn't raise any eyebrows. If this strange basement is really there, then perhaps his choice of location was not simply a display of status. Clearly some of his books were there, and I can't help but wonder whether that was where they were found, or just where they were stored. The other major point of interest is the fact that this complex appears to have been designed by Robert Smirk. You should have seen Tim's face when I told him. Architecture is one of his specialist areas, and he has always talked of Smirk as one that fascinates him. How did he phrase it? A master of subtle stability. From a professional standpoint, it also interests him that Smirk's buildings have higher percentages of reported paranormal sightings than any other architect of similar profile. He hasn't been able to find out much about the Carlton Club specifically, at least not anything relevant to this statement. In his later years, following Smirk's official retirement in 1845, there were all sorts of rumors about his interests and religious preferences. If there was a scandalous sect or bizarre cult, his name would always be seen mentioned among those meeting with them. He also started putting his name forward to design churches, despite his claimed retirement. He was never taken up on these offers. Interesting, but fundamentally not that useful for the case in hand, especially since we have been unable to get permission to physically investigate whether this place even exists. It seems we've reached something of a dead end. No pun intended. End record. Oh, God damn it! Martin! Martin, where did you put the rest of the extinguishers? Martin!
Martin. Martin. What happened? Martin? Hello?
John, did you call
Excuse us.
looking for the archivist? I'm sorry, you two actually meant to...
Won't take up your time.
Just got a delivery. Look, you really can't actually...
Package for Jonathan Sims.
It's right here. Well, I don't really know where he is.
We'll just leave it with you.
Be sure he gets it. Okay, I will, but you really do have to actually...
Much obliged.
Stay safe. I'll try.
Your recorder's on, by the way.
Might want to change that. Oh,
Might want to change that.
so it is.
So it is.
Thanks.
No problem.
At all.
The Magnus Archives is a podcast distributed by rustyquill.com and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike International license. Today's episode was written and performed by Jonathan Sims. It was produced by Alexander J. Newell and Mike LeBeau, and directed by Alexander J. Newell. To comment on episodes, make donations and view links, images, videos, and show notes, visit rustyquill.com. Rate and review us on iTunes, visit us on Facebook, tweet us on Twitter at The Rusty Quill, or email us at mail@rustyquill.com. Thanks for listening.
Okay. I will stop there for tonight, but obviously I gotta finish my picture. I am pretty much done. Okay. Oh yeah, I never said anything about the last two, but this was Meadow doing something calming, like having tea with 9 Alpha and Alpha Omega Nova. And the other one was Q and 02 doing a stab. The scrungly Meadow. That was good timing that I finished that one just as it was ending. That is my 49th doodle. And I think 8th tonight. Yeah. I didn't get to as many as I maybe wanted to, but I figured this is probably something I just gotta chip away at. And I don't mind that, because I really like doing these. They're so fun and silly. Yeah. Wahoo! Let me turn over. Hi. Hello. Thank you for joining me on my doodling adventure. Whoop. I will probably do more doobles in a few weeks. My next stream will be next week. I am going to probably be able to finish up Tulip next stream. I'm so excited. I keep thinking about all the 10 kisses that I have left to do, and I can't wait to do them. And then our next stream is tomorrow night with Chalky doing Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I hope Kirby remembers the land. I wonder if Kirby will ever remember the land. Who knows? And then Wednesday night, we got a guest headmate stream of Magenta playing Freedom Planet 2, Nearest Story. And then Thursday night, my girlfriend Q is playing more Splatoon 2. Friday night, we're not streaming, but Skitter is hosting Shaolin Showdown Watch Party on Discord. And then Sunday night, Cuddle is gonna continue Heart Chain Kitty. Meow. That's what the kitty says. I think. I don't know why I got so sleepy all of a sudden. But I'm happy with what I did. Woohoo! I love that Skitter PNGtuber so much. So cute, so silly. Oh, yay! It makes me so happy when people say they're looking forward to things. We're looking forward to things too, of course. Whee! Yeah, okay. I'm gonna marry Fuki, who is playing Metroid Prime Remastered. And I hope you... Wait, I didn't go through. What? Did I do it wrong? It is /raid, right? Why didn't it go through? Hello? Should I try again? There, now it went through. That's so weird. That's so weird. Twitch? I've never seen that happen. Not just me, but to anybody. That's so weird. Anyway. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night, wherever you are at. Take care of yourself, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.